This video presentation will cover drown-proofing and the survival applications of it. The topics covered in this presentation will be treading water, different swimming strokes, survival applications, and exercises one can train now to be more confident in the water. Treading water can be any type of movement that keeps you in a stationary position that keeps your head out of the water. It is very important to use correct technique when swimming, because if you do not know how to swim and have to stay stationary until help arrives, an example of this could be out in the ocean waiting for a boat to rescue you, you must be able to stay on the surface for as long as possible. Otherwise, you risk drowning. Inexperienced swimmers will use their legs and arms in an uncoordinated fashion that expends a lot of energy and tires themselves out. That is why learning a treading technique that fits your comfort is the most important aspect of surviving in a drowning situation. There are various methods one can use when trying to stay afloat. These are 3 common forms that people use when treading water. The first is the egg beater kick, typically an advanced form of treading water that requires training to learn. Second is the forward kick, and third is the frog kick. The name of the kick describes the motion you'll see in the following video. My personal recommendation is to learn the frog kick, and then learn the egg beater kick. I like to think of the egg beater kick as a variation of the frog kick, where you kick one leg at a time instead of together. The egg beater kick is an efficient form of treading water. It does not require the use of hands. The swimmer's back must be straight and knees bent so that the thighs are parallel to the surface of the water, and lower legs perpendicular to the surface. This will make a sitting formation. The left leg makes a clockwise motion, while the right leg makes a counterclockwise motion. It leaves the hands free to do work if necessary. To do the forward kick, swing your legs back and forth while using your hands to support you in between the kicks. This kick is simple and used more than the egg beater kick. The frog kick is very efficient and splits the work between your arms and legs. First, you kick in from the side with your legs. Then, while your legs are separating to kick again, use your hands to pull the water horizontally by angling your hands. If you do this slowly, while you are kicking, your hands are resting, and while you are pulling, your legs are resting. This is why the frog kick allows for the best recovery. The egg beater kick allows the swimmer to reach high with their hands. The frog kick without using your hands is efficient. This could be used in a survival situation where you do not know the egg beater kick and your arms are injured or cramping. If you cannot travel while treading water, it would be better to float. Floating is a technique that will be explained later. We covered egg beater kick, forward kick, and frog kick. We will now move on to different swimming strokes that a swimmer can use to travel on the surface of the water. The first is the combat side stroke. Second is the breaststroke, and third is front crawl. Front crawl is usually known as freestyle. Knowing how to swim will prevent yourself from drowning in almost all scenarios. Note that about 20% of fatal drownings are the result of children 14 years or younger, not knowing how to swim because they were never taught. If the body of water is taller than your height, you should know how to swim with form. Otherwise, you are at risk of drowning. Even if you know how to swim, you are still capable of panicking and not applying what you know to save yourself. The top reasons why people drown is not knowing how to swim and panicking when they are stressed. I recommend swimming on a weekly basis to become more confident in the water. The combat side stroke utilizes the 3 main fundamentals of swimming: balance, length, and rotation. For balance, there are 2 things that affect your balance in the water: the head and lungs. Most people when swimming, especially when using breaststroke, will swim with their head up, which forces their hips to sink down, which is like they are swimming uphill and is a sign of being less comfortable. However, if the body is flat or more parallel to the waterline, it is far more effective and will allow the swimmer to feel more comfortable in the water. For length, the taller the person is, the faster the speed through the water. As a result, it is important that the swimmer is fully stretched horizontally in the water, as this will reduce the body's drag through the water and allow a higher speed. And for rotation, when the swimmer engages their hips and uses their body core muscles, it will increase power. The breaststroke is a swimming style in which the swimmer is on their chest and their torso does not rotate. It is a very popular swimming style because your head is out of the water for a lot of the time, so you can breathe comfortably, and you can swim slow at a comfortable pace. I like to swim with the breaststroke because I can streamline very efficiently after each pool, and I can rest in between the pools as long as I want, because you do not start sinking as soon as you start pooling. It's only after you slow down in which you start sinking. So you can pool, travel, and rest very efficiently. Front crawl, or freestyle, is a popular swimming style. I am demonstrating the long distance variation where instead of kicking rapidly in small motions, I am doing strong scissor kicks. This is more practical for a survival situation. This technique comes from the method of total immersion. It focuses on 3 principles: balance, streamlining, and propulsion. Mastering this stroke will allow one to swim for hours non-stop and not feel tired. I recommend this stroke when having to travel a far distance. In my experience, I swam 2.4 miles in 1 hour and 25 minutes and 28 seconds. Here is a demonstration of the usefulness of front crawl and combat side stroke. This is a rescue situation where I need to rescue something that is drowning or sinking and carry it to the other side using combat side stroke. After I grab the object, I have to hold on to it and swim with it, trying to keep it on top of the surface. That way, if it was a person, they could still breathe. In this video, I'm carrying a 10-pound brick. It is easier to carry a person than a brick because they have a greater buoyancy force. Being able to hold your breath for a long period of time is very important. Here is an exercise that involves 2 people that could help train your lung capacity and keep yourself calm when stressed. In this exercise, there is a brick at the bottom of the pool, and one person must be touching the brick at all times. In order to do this, one person must alternate in breathing. As you can see, when one person touches the brick, the other comes up to breathe. The longer it takes for one person to breathe, the longer one person is touching the brick. So in order to do this exercise properly, try to quickly get to the brick, otherwise your partner will suffer. As you can see, I try to make a really fast effort to get to the brick. I bob up really quickly, and then bob up down, and then touch the brick. However, my partner, who is not as experienced, once he goes up, he slowly goes up, breathes, maybe takes 2 breaths, comes back down, swims down, touches the brick, and that makes me have to hold my breath longer. However, since I have a lot of training in this, I'm able to stay calm and relax and not be stressed out. For this exercise, we did it for 2 minutes. One thing to note is that if you make the depth of the pool a lot larger, this exercise becomes a lot more intense and becomes kind of dangerous to do. So make sure you have a lifeguard always watching. Here is full bound. Full bound is being tied at the wrists behind your back and ankles being tied. For the purpose of this video, I will not be actually tied, I will be just pretending. So the first thing we want to do is know how to bob when we're fully tied. This involves bouncing pretty much from the bottom of the pool in order to surface and breathe. Because you can't really use your extremities to kick that effectively, you want to be able to stay calm and just sink down the bottom by letting out air. Breathe once you get to the top and sink back down. When you're really tired, this is one of the best things you can do to stay calm and, become recovered quickly. So moving on to floating. Here you can just lean forward and you'll stay buoyant as long as you have a lot of oxygen in your lungs. All you gotta do at this point is lift your head, breathe, and when you breathe, you're going to sink downwards because you're lifting your head up and becoming in more of a vertical position. So if you look closely, you'll be able to see that I'm sunk a little. So I'm dolphin kicking a little just to get back to the surface so I can breathe. Otherwise, you would have to wait a long time before having to breathe again. So staying still, kicking up to breathe just once in a while, and here I can recover my muscles. Alright, the next one we're going to show is traveling. And this is where you do dolphin kicks all the way to the other side of the pool. It's like doing an inchworm. So ideally you want to kick from the hips to travel, and then that will kick from your thighs to your calves and your feet. With this exercise, you can do a lot of kicks in one breath, or you can breathe after every 2 kicks or 1 kicks. It's really up to what the situation is. So once I get to the wall, I'm going to turn around and kick all the way back. There I was just on my back because I kicked off the wall and I was leaning back. It's worth noting that you can also do this on your back. It depends on what feels most comfortable to you. I personally like to keep my head underwater and maintain a very horizontal plane. Because the more flat you are, the less restriction you have and the more that you're going to float. Now that I'm back, before I do the next exercise, I'm going to do a little bit more bobbing because, that was a little tiring doing all those dolphin kicks. So bobbing is going to calm me down and make me more relaxed. I'm trying to slow it down, get my pacing going. What I'm going to do next is reorientation. So after a couple bobs, I'm going to try to disorientate myself by doing flips. So I'm upside down, but I'm still be able to gain control even when I'm fully bound. And then I'm going to bob a couple more times, get my breath back. And then I try to do a backflip, but miserably fail. And then bob a couple more times. And the next one is item retrieval. So say if you need to pick something up and you're fully bound, you can still use your mouth to pick it up. Here is a video that shows 3 friends, 2 knowing how to swim and 1 that doesn't, jumping into a pool. So just looking at the video, can you tell which one that doesn't know how to swim the one that's nervous and anxious. So this first one goes in, dives in comfortably, and their friends are pointing, getting excited about jumping in. The girl is smiling, all ready to have some fun. She jumps in. Amazing dive. The third friend, look at his entrance. Something's wrong right away. And he's flailing about, doesn't know how to coordinate his body to swim. And he's using all of his energy right now to stay afloat. He's not crying out for help because he's stressed. So his friend comes to try to rescue him. And as his friend grabs him and is about to push him to the side, not intentionally trying to hurt his friend, but he's pushing down on his friend in order to breathe, to get a breath. This is what happens when someone panics. This is what panicking looks like. Although he might be really close to the edge of the pool, see, he grabs his friend, pushes them down, not intentionally trying to hurt them, but because he's trying to get a breath. This is why it's very important to learn how to swim. Because if his friends weren't there, eventually he would have tired out, went to the bottom of the pool, and drowned. Now imagine this guy is on a cruise ship, and they go through a storm that's very bad. The winds are high, the waves are huge. And imagine somehow he fell overboard, and no one knew he fell over. So, do you think he'll be able to survive this next video?
My name is Sergeant Alan Morris, SEER Specialist. We're going to watch water survival training.
Let's do it.
This is why it's very important to learn how to swim. Because if his friends weren't there, eventually he would have tired out, went to the bottom of the pool, and drowned. Now imagine this guy is on a cruise ship, and they go through a storm that's very bad. The winds are high, the waves are huge. And imagine somehow he fell overboard, and no one knew he fell over. So, do you think he'll be able to survive this next video?
My name is Sergeant Alan Morris, SEER Specialist. We're going to watch water survival training.
Let's do it.
This is why it's very important to learn how to swim. Because if his friends weren't there, eventually he would have tired out, went to the bottom of the pool, and drowned. Now imagine this guy is on a cruise ship, and they go through a storm that's very bad. The winds are high, the waves are huge. And imagine somehow he fell overboard, and no one knew he fell over. So, do you think he'll be able to survive this next video?
My name is Sergeant Alan Morris, SEER Specialist. We're going to watch water survival training.
Let's do it.
is about riptides, and this next video will show you what to do if you're stuck into one.
My last Liberty call in Fort Lauderdale started off nice enough. But when I suddenly realized I was being tugged out to sea by a rip current, things got pretty scary. At first, I was too embarrassed to call for help. I'm a sailor after all. I should know what to do in a water emergency. But I was tiring quickly trying to swim against the current. I knew if I didn't get help, I'd drown. Thank goodness there was a lifeguard nearby. It only took him a few seconds to get to me, but it seemed an eternity. He towed me parallel to the shore until we were both free of the current. Then he easily pulled me back to the beach. I learned an important lesson about the sea that day. The trick to escaping a rip current is to swim parallel to the shore, not towards the shore, and look for rip current warnings when you first arrive.
Now that we've seen people get rescued, let's see what the process involves in actually rescuing the person.
Once the student completes SWIC orientation, he'll move on to SWIC BCT. And one of the first evolutions we conduct on day 2 is a water rescue test. If a student isn't able to complete the evolution or pass the test, he will go before a review board and will be considered for either removal from training or possibly setback. We're looking for students to be able to rescue a simulated drowning victim. Real world application is someone gets thrown off a boat or knocked unconscious, and we need to be able to perform a rescue in the open ocean. The technique starts by executing a stride jump and entering the water. The student will then rescue crawl stroke to the simulated drowning victim. At that time, they will assess their victim and do what we call the head escape method. The victim will try and use them as a buoy. They'll slip the clinch, get control of their victim, and put him into a straight arm collar tow. They'll use a straight arm collar tow to plane the victim out. Once they have the victim on plane, they'll transition what we call the cross chest carry. From then, it's a gut check, and they have to complete a 25-meter rescue stroke. If at any time the student doesn't execute the stride jump, the head escape method, or the cross chest carry, and the victim is unable to continue a normal breathing cycle, we consider that a failure, and the student will not move on. This is a high attrition evolution. We can attribute most of our attrition to this evolution, and it's just because a lot of our students will show up unprepared and not comfortable in the water. One way guys can practice when they're home is they can either consult the total immersion swimming technique. So any lifeguard videos they can watch, techniques, the total immersion swimming techniques, we rely heavily on that as part of our teaching method. So if you can find swim coaches, lifeguarding, any of those things in your local area will benefit.
Now we will watch a video that shows how to do the egg beater kick and describe it more in detail, like on the process, how you learn how to do it.
Teaching the egg beater kick to beginners. It's very important to start with the base position of a general breaststroke kick. I like to do this with the kids floating on a ball in a vertical position. Most kids grow up and learn to kick and swim breaststroke early on. So this skill is easy to learn. So once they have the breaststroke kick down, I'll then turn and rotate their hips up, continuing with the breaststroke kick. Once that's completely together and they have a perfect breaststroke kick and they're finishing their kick all the way down into my ankles, then I'll move to an egg beater. Keys here: big toe to my shin, feet turned out like a duck. Left, right. Now, as the athlete progresses and they start to get a feel for the water, you can really start to talk to them about having their inner side of their foot sweep in so that they can really start feeling the water on the sides and top of their feet. The final thing to talk to the kids about is the frequency. We have fast legs, okay, which get us prepared to move at any time, and we'll always be ready to respond to any sort of situation. Water polo happens in many different phases. There's not just one movement, it's 3, 4, 5 part movements. So The frequency is how fast my legs are going. I slow them down when I'm on defense. I'm in a control position. I speed them up when I'm trying to react, shot block, whatever, get up higher in the water. So one thing to really focus on is your flexibility and range of motion. A lot of times you'll see players, either goalkeepers or field players, that have trouble jumping out of the water. Their knees are really narrow. They're not really flexing their leg out and getting a lot of motion with their legs. So what I mean by that is really tight knees. You're not pushing much water down. You're pushing water down with the bottom of your heel. If you can really spread your leg, get as much of the water being pushed with the inside of your leg, inside of your calf, really stretch out your legs, you're going to get a lot more pull and a lot more explosion. So you can see the difference here. My legs are wide, and if I bring it in really tight, knees close, I'm not getting that much motion. That's a lot of times you'll see a goalkeeper who's maybe 5'10" or 6 feet, who's really explosive and getting the corners as well or better than a 6'4", 6'5" goalie. Odds are they've got really great technique. So one thing to think about the egg beater, just like when you're doing swimming and a swim stroke and thinking of swim technique, it's the same thing underwater with the egg beater. There's a technique to it. You're not just randomly kicking your legs. You're working and you're focusing on pulling a lot of water, just like you'd pull a lot of water with a stroke in swimming. So really think about it the next time you get in the pool and try and improve it.
Now we will watch a video that shows a training process that one can follow in order to become stronger after they've mastered the basics. In conclusion, we talked about treading water, which involved the egg beater kick, forward kick, and frog kick. We also explained why it's very important to stay afloat over a long period of time for a survival situation. We also went over strokes. We talked about the combat side stroke, breaststroke, and front crawl. We watched videos explaining the importance of surviving with those techniques. I gave some exercises that one could practice to be more confident in the water. We also watched some videos demonstrating real-life examples of drowning and simulated drills of drowning. Thank you for watching my video presentation on drown proofing.